The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is a Canadian statutory holiday to recognize the legacy of the Canadian Indian residential school system. Orange Shirt Day was first established as an observance in 2013 as part of an effort to promote awareness and education of the residential school system and the impact it had on Indigenous communities for over a century. The impact of residential school systems has been recognized as a cultural genocide and continues to this day. The use of an orange shirt as a symbol was inspired by the account of Phyllis Jack Webstat, whose personal clothing, including a new orange shirt, was taken from her during the first day of residential school and never returned. The orange shirt is thus used as a symbol of the forced assimilation of Indigenous children that the residential school system enforced. In light of the revelations of over 1,000 unmarked graves near the former residential site, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is a statutory holiday for federal government employees and private sector employees to whom the Canadian Labor Code applies. Phyllis Jack Webstat's story, in her own words, I went to the mission for one school year in 1973 and 1974. I had turned 6 years old. I lived with my grandmother on the Dog Creek Reserve. We never had much money, but somehow my granny managed to buy me a new outfit to go to mission school. I remember going to Robinson's store and picking out a shiny orange shirt. It had a string lace up front and was also bright and exciting, just like I felt to be going to school. When I got to the mission school, they stripped me and took away my clothes, including my orange shirt. I never wore it again. I didn't understand why they wouldn't give it back to me. It was mine. The color orange has always reminded me of that and how my feelings didn't matter, how no one cared, and how I felt like I was worth nothing. All of the children were crying and no one cared. I was 13 years old and in grade 8 when my son Jeremy was born. Because my grandmother and my mother both attended residential school for 10 years each, I never knew what a parent was supposed to be like. With the help of my aunt, Agnes Jack, I was able to raise my son and have him know me as his mother. I went into a treatment center for healing when I was 27 and have been on a healing journey since then. I finally get it, that the feelings of worthlessness and insignificance ingrained in me from my first day at mission school affected the way I lived my life for many years. Even now, when I know nothing could be further from the truth, I still sometimes feel I don't matter. Even with all the work I've done, I am honored to be able to tell my story so that others may benefit and understand, and maybe other survivors will feel comfortable enough to share their stories. Phyllis has published 2 books, The Orange Shirt Story and Phyllis's Orange Shirt for younger children. Both are at our library. Today, Phyllis is married, has 1 son, a stepson, and 5 grandchildren. She is the founder and ambassador of the Orange Shirt Society and tours the country telling her story and raising awareness about the impacts of the residential school system. Indian residential schools operated in Canada between 1870 and 1990s. Children between the ages of 4 and 16 attended Indian residential school. It is estimated that over 150,000 Indian, Inuit, and Métis children attended Indian residential school. National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Each year, September 30th marks a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The day honors the children who never returned home and survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. Public commemoration of the tragic and painful stories and ongoing impact of residential schools is a vital component to the reconciliation process. Both the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day take place on September 30th. Orange Shirt Day is an Indigenous-led grassroots commemorative day intended to raise awareness of the individual, family, and community intergenerational impacts of residential schools and to promote the concept of every child matters. The orange shirt is a symbol of the stripping away of culture, freedom, and self-esteem experienced by Indigenous children over generations. On September 30th, we encourage all Canadians to wear orange to honor the thousands of survivors of residential schools. Commemorating the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, across the country, hundreds of local activities are taking place that commemorate the history and legacy of residential schools. Former residential school students can call 1-866-925-4419 for emotional crisis referral services and information on other health supports from the Government of Canada. Indigenous people across Canada can also go to the Hope for Wellness helpline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for counseling and crisis intervention. Call the toll-free helpline at 1-855-242-3310. There were 140 federally run residential schools in Canada that operated between 1831 and 1998. The last school closed less than 25 years ago. Survivors advocated for recognition, reparation, and demanded accountability for the intergenerational impacts of harm caused. We'll take an opportunity here to see what some of the schools are doing, and an Algonquin teacher, Bernita Wabie, put together this video with her students.
This project was undertaken by myself and the grades 6, 7, and 8 students over the last 2 years. I enlisted the help of an elder, my mother, Emily Wabie, to complete one of the quilts. The following students, Wabagoni, McLaren McLeod, Reese Babing, Riley Wasakwinizik, and Max Polson Chivrier, will share the meaning of the quilts.
Quilt number 1 is yellow, which is associated with the sun. Yellow is said to represent optimism, positive energy, joy, happiness, and friendship. This quilt represents the eastern door where the First Nations people came from. Dancers enter from the eastern door during the grand entry at a powwow celebration. The symbolism on this quilt includes the 7 grandfather teachings, the medicine wheel teachings, and our 4 sacred medicines. The 7 teachings are the gift of the great grandfathers. There are silhouettes of each animal representing teachings. There is the eagle McGizzy for love, the buffalo Pajaki for respect, the turtle Mechanic for truth, the beaver Amik for wisdom, the wolf Mahigan for humility, Sabe or Bigfoot for honesty, and the bear Maklaw for courage. All of these teachings must be practiced together. At Keewatin, we teach and practice the 7 grandfather teachings daily. All sectors of the medicine wheel are equal and have many teachings for the children. The medicine wheel is a lifelong journey and all aspects should be practiced to create balance in one's life. The 4 sacred medicines are important and are located on the medicine wheel. The tobacco pouch Nasema was made by a student. The cedar Kijik was harvested out front of the school for a medicine lesson. The children also made tea from the cedar. The sage Apabawashk was harvested from behind the band office by Miss Wabie the first year she arrived at Keewatin School. The sweetgrass Nokwaywashk Dreamcatcher was given to Miss Wabie by a former student, Phoenix King, 3 years ago. Everything you see on these quilts have special meanings for Miss Wabie and involve the students.
Quilt number 2 is red, which has a range of symbols, including life or blood, courage, anger, and love. All of these require passion, and equal balance of men and women are represented on this quilt for harmony. The Native Women Association of Canada launched the Faceless Dog Project in 2012. It visualizes the countless faceless victims of crime, Indigenous women and girls who have gone missing or were murdered. They were someone's daughter, aunt, mothers, granddaughters, and grandmothers. Our loved and they'll never be forgotten. We have included faceless men dolls on this quilt to represent the men and boys that have gone missing or were murdered. They were someone's sons, uncles, fathers, grandsons, and grandfathers. All were loved and they'll never be forgotten. Ms. Wabie worked on the quilt during both COVID-19 school shutdowns. At this time, the last row of faceless men and women were incomplete. She asked her mother, Emily Wabie, an elder, to complete the last row for the quilt. Emily Wabie was very honored to participate with the completing the second quilt. This completed the circle of youth, teacher, and elder working on these quilts.
Quilt number 3 is black, which represents mystery, power, anger, and sadness. This black quilt depicts the darker times in our history. The residential schools, Indian day schools, and the industrial schools. I've included both bright and dully orange colored t-shirts because of these dark times. Each shirt has a number to commemorate the children that were stripped of their identity. These children were known as a number and not by their name. The school in the center represents the first and last residential school, which the children were taken to. Our quilt remembers both the survivors and those children that died and never returned home. The first residential school was opened in 1831 and the last residential school was closed in 1996. Canadian musician Gord Downie created the Secret Path Project, which is about Cheney Wenjack, misnamed Charlie by his teachers. He was a young boy who died on October 22, 1966, trying to walk home along railway tracks, escaping the Cecilia Jeffrey Indian Residential School. Gord Downie made this for Cheney Wenjack, his family, and for the thousands of First Nation families trying to work through this today. This was a beautiful gift which was given to us. It seems like a coincidence that Gord Downie died from cancer on October 17, 2017, very close to the date that Cheney Wenjack died. The orange t-shirt originated from Phyllis Jack Webstand from the Dog Creek Reserve. She was proudly wearing a bright new orange t-shirt her grandmother bought her when she was taken to a mission school in 1973. Upon her arrival to school, her orange t-shirt was taken away, her hair was cut, and she was given a number and a uniform to wear. The orange t-shirts also represents the Every Child Matters campaign. The orange t-shirt day started on September 30th, 2013. An annual walk remembering the residential school survivors and the ones that never returned home happens each year. Our children take part in this walk so our relatives are never forgotten, and they celebrate those who returned home to their families. The Mohawk Institute in Brantford, Ontario was the first residential school to open in 1831. The Gorn Residential School in Funachai, Saskatchewan was the last residential school to close in 1996. The purpose of the residential school system was to assimilate the children into the mainstream, stripping them of their identity, culture, traditions, and language, an impact which was recognized as a cultural genocide. We still have many First Nation people and their families that have been traumatized by this government action.
Quilt number 4 is white, which represents hope, purity, and innocence. What can convey cleanliness, freshness, and simplicity. This white quilt represents a new beginning or fresh start for our culture, traditions, and Algonquin language. The color white strongly represents hope for our people's future. An equal balance of men and women are represented on this quilt for harmony. The red dress and necktie walks are for our missing and murdered First Nations men, women, boys, and girls. They are both equally important. They were someone's brother, daughter, sister, daughter, son, uncle, aunt, father, mother, grandson, granddaughter, grandfather, or grandmother. They were once alive, loved, and won't be forgotten by us nor their families. No More Missing Sisters is another caption. The Red Dress Project started in 2010 by a Métis artist, Jamie Black. The necktie campaign began 2015 for missing and murdered Indigenous men and boys. This was adapted from the Red Cloth Ribbons Memorial Campaign. We hope you have enjoyed the teaching quilts the students and Miss Wabie have made. The grades 6, 7, 8s and Miss Wabie's mother, Emily Wabie, worked together to complete these quilts. By having the teacher, students, and an elder working together on the quilts, the circle was complete. The entrance of Keewatin School now shows culture and traditions that are instilled into our students. The students have shown their pride and love for Keewatin School. Now when you enter Keewatin School, you see that this is a proud community of students. Miss Wabie would like to say a huge kitschy miigwech to her students from grades 6, 7, 8, and 8 from 2019 to 2020. It warms our heart to see how committed you all were. When we were making the teaching quilts, Miss Wabie would also like to give a special kitschy miigwech to her mother, Emily Wabie. Without her, the circle wouldn't have been complete. We, the students, would like to say kitschy miigwech to Miss Wabie, our culture and Algonquin teacher, for her hard work and dedication.
Yeah.